There's an old line that preservationists use, and that is that poverty is a friend of preservation, which means that, you know, if you're so poor you don't tear down your old buildings, you get to use them again, you know, and there's a lot of Mississippi that's still left.
To an outsider, hurtling down the road of the Mississippi Delta, it's easy to spot some of the state's more unflattering distinctions. And with the lowest median income and highest poverty rate in the United States, it's difficult to see a luster in an area that Paul Simon once sang was shining like a national guitar. Like many visitors traveling through Mississippi, Simon's poetic quip was merely a passing reference in a ballad about another destination. But through a strange collection of forces, the state has found a rather simple way to perhaps alter that tune.
The Blues Trail project started in 2006. We put up 3 markers in December of 2006. The first one was at the grave of Charlie Patton over in the Delta.
Since then, Scott Beretta has co-authored 169 markers for the Mississippi Blues Trail, allowing visitors to drive from marker to marker and find the origins and former stomping grounds of the state's blues legends. For years, it had been just the diehard fans seeking out these sites. But since the expansion of the Blues Marker Project, the state has seen a steady uptick in the number of visitors.
And then as we got more and more markers in the ground, we begin to see visitors coming to look at these markers and to experience these communities and to go to these sacred places. But we've seen it revitalize a lot of our communities that were really sort of hurting and suffering and were sort of down and out.
For Mississippi, a state where tourism only constituted 4% of their 2012 GDP, blues heritage tourism is a bright spot. And while it is the casino gaming industry that makes up the vast majority of tourism dollars, gaming revenues have decreased in the past 2 years. This, alongside a steady increase in the total number of Mississippi visitors. And perhaps more telling, the sector has moved up from 5th to 4th in the ranks for private, direct, non-farm employment.
This isn't putting a car plant in. This isn't some sort of a major measure, but if we can think about you know, the number of tourists increasing, the number of tanks of gas being sold, the number of hotel rooms, meals, you know, this does provide a small sort of economic development.
But getting a marker does not necessarily deliver an immediate change in a town's fortune. For a town like Vance, Mississippi, the early childhood home of John Lee Hooker, perhaps the most famous and commercially successful blues musician of all time, it will take much more than a sign on the side of the road. Like so many towns in Mississippi, they've lived on the margins for so long that it lacks the organizational wherewithal to really capitalize on what it has here.
There's hundreds of Vances in Mississippi, small towns whose economy has changed and evolved and moved on, and they're searching for where do they go from here. And see, no one goes door to door and tells people, oh, by the way, the economy's about to change. I mean, we don't get that sort of notice.
There are, however, towns that have managed to dramatically change their trajectory because of blues tourism. Clarksdale, Mississippi, home to the Delta Blues Museum, is often cited as a key example of the potential for towns across the state.
We average about 25,000 visitors a year, and you know, people come, they spend the night, they spend money in the town, they support the businesses. While the Blues Trail is by no means a singular solution to the state's ills, its success has convinced the state to create both a country music and civil rights trail in the same fashion. So like native son William Faulkner, who famously proclaimed he would never live long enough to exhaust his desire to write about his postage stamp of native soil, Mississippi will continue to drill into its past in the hopes that it might find its future.
So I think that's sort of the story that we have to tell, is that, you know, we have found a new economy, and lo and behold, it's the story of who we are.
I got 2 little babes and a darling.
Christopher Booker, Financial Times, Jackson, Mississippi.